Representative Hansen, would you like to move your bill?
Yes, Madam Chair, I will move that House File 50 be recommended to be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee.
Representative Hansen, I believe you have the A1 Authors Amendment. Would you like to move your amendment and please explain it to the committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The A1 Authors Amendment was recommended by both nonpartisan staff and the reviser, and then also the DNR. Maybe if Ms. Taylor could just walk through what we had to do. To summarize, because we had passed this, there was a time moved on. This is really a good example of why we need to pass these every year, because when time moves on, we have to go back and correct the language to make it relevant for the current year. Ms. Taylor?
Ms. Taylor?
Madam Chair, Representative Hansen, the A1 does two things. First, the language you'll see adding a new section 7. In the underlying bill, there's a section 23 that repeals some language, and that what it was repealing was a sunset of provision, so the provision would stay in effect. Well, unfortunately, because we didn't pass anything in 2022, it sunsetted, so the language is no longer there. So what this would do would reinstate that language in statute, since it will be permanent. And then later on in the amendment, you'll see on lines 3.23 and 3.24 is some additional language that the DNR had requested to add to a section on the Fillmore County to expand the types of easements that would be retained.
Representative Hansen moves the A1 amendment to get the bill in the form that he would like. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion prevails and the A1 amendment is adopted. Representative Hansen, to your bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have DNR staff, Lori Klein, here to speak to the bill.
Ms. Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Lori Klein. I'm an attorney with the Lands and Minerals Division at the DNR. I'll be walking you through the Lands Bill today. As you know, each year the Lands Bill typically includes amendments to statutes affecting DNR-administered state land or DNR land transactions, changes to state park or state forest boundaries, an authorization to sell certain riparian lands, to sell lands by private sale, or to sell lands for less than market value. For land sales, DNR coordinates statutory and program requirements to sell land that no longer meets conservation or recreation needs or are isolated from larger management areas or parcels. The Lands Bill is also typically amended to include tax forfeit land sale provisions proposed by counties, sales of state land administered by agencies other than the DNR, or provisions pertaining to county lands owned in fee title. The Lands Bill is typically seen as non-controversial, and we strive to maintain that every year, and I believe this one has been non-controversial. These land bills provisions contain provisions initially proposed by DNR last session in early 2022, or that were added via an amendment or proposed to be added by amendment. Some of the provisions were added at the request of counties, including St. Louis County, Goodhue County, and Beltrami County, or other state agencies. Sections 1 through 3 of the bill pertain to fees that an applicant must pay for an easement across DNR-administered state lands and for the release of an easement held by DNR across someone else's land. Section 1 pertains to easements to the United States, a federally recognized Indian tribe, or the state of Minnesota or its subdivisions. Section 2 pertains to easements to private parties. Section 3 pertains to releases of easements held by the DNR over someone else's land. There are some circumstances where the DNR's land management interests benefit from issuance of or release of an easement. In those circumstances, the DNR would like the flexibility not to have to impose all of the fees required by law on the applicant. The proposed changes in sections 1 to 3 of the bill would give the DNR the flexibility to assume the $2,000 application fee for an easement or an easement release and to assume or waive other fees. The application fee pays for the Division of Lands and Minerals work to process easements and easement release transactions, and the division needs this funding. The amendments in section 1 to 3 would allow the DNR division that benefits from the easement or easement release instead of the applicant to cover the $2,000 application fee. Other fees, such as the market value fee of the easement, could either be assumed by the division benefiting from the easement or easement release or waived. Section 4 of the Lands Bill amends Minnesota Statute 92.502 to clarify that the 30-year leases of DNR facilities are permitted even if they are not associated with recreational trails. Section 92.502 authorizes 30-year leases for recreational trails and facilities. Section 5 is a provision proposed by counties, which was added into the land bill. The DNR has reviewed this and has no concerns. Section 6 is also a county provision. The DNR has reviewed that one as well and has no concerns about that one. Section 7 adds 11.5 acres to the boundary of Meyer-Big Island State Park in Freeborn County. The DNR is pursuing acquisition of approximately 58.5 acres of land lying within the existing state park boundary. The 58.5 acres are directly to the south of the 11.5 acres the DNR is requesting to add to the state park boundary. An owner of the 58.5 acre parcel also owns the 11.5 acre parcel that's being added. He's informed the DNR Division of Parks and Trails that he will not agree to the sale of the 58.5 acre parcel unless the DNR also acquires the 11.5 acre parcel. In order to complete the acquisition of both parcels, we're seeking the boundary change. Section 8 deletes 7,482 acres from the boundary of Cloquet Valley State Forest in St. Louis County. The deleted acres were designated as portions of the Riverland State Forest in St. Louis County in 2021's Omnibus Environment Bill. The lands are also currently within the existing Cloquet Valley State Forest boundary. The proposed deletion clarifies that the lands are only part of Riverland State Forest. Section 9 adds 121.5 acres to the boundaries of Riverland State Forest in St. Louis County. This is a technical change, adding acres that were inadvertently omitted in the 2021 legislation creating the Riverland State Forest. Section 10 is a county provision that authorizes the sale of tax forfeit land in Beltrami County. The DNR has reviewed this and has no concerns with the provision. Section 11 authorizes the public sale of 29.6 acres of surplus riparian state land in Cass County. This land was acquired in 1948 and 1960 and comprises the Agate Rearing Pond AMA. The DNR currently has no legal access to this unit, and it is no longer used for fish rearing. While the DNR is still pursuing acquisition of legal access to the parcel, it is seeking legislative approval to sell the parcel in the event that efforts to gain legal access are not successful. Section 12 authorizes the private sale of 0.17 acres of surplus state land in Crow Wing County to resolve an encroachment through the sale of that 0.7 acres to an adjacent owner. Section 13 authorizes the public sale of 9.53 acres of surplus riparian land in Fillmore County. The Division of Forestry identified this parcel for sale because it is small and isolated from other state land. There is no public access, and it is difficult to manage due to its small size and location. The DNR will retain the Harmony Preston Valley State Trail that crosses the parcel and will also retain trout stream easements on the Root River and the Watson Creek, as well as access easements to those trout stream easements. I will note that the access easements language was added via the amendment to the bill. Section 14 is a county provision that authorizes the private sale of 0.33 acres of riparian tax forfeited land in Beltrami County. The county has reviewed this and has no concerns. Section 15 authorizes the private sale of approximately 0.55 acres of surplus riparian state land in Hennepin County to a local unit of government for less than market value. These lands were part of a bequest of lands from the estate of Bruce Dayton to the DNR for the Woodrill Scientific and Natural Area. The 0.55 acres abut Long Lake and are cut off from the remaining portions of the Scientific and Natural Area by East Long Lake Road. The DNR determined that these lands would be better managed by the city of Verano and is seeking authority to convey the lands to the city at no cost. And I just want to correct one error. Section 14 should be Goodhue County. I think I said Beltrami County on that one. I apologize for that. Section 16 authorizes the public sale of 59 acres of surplus riparian land in Itasca County. The 59 acres consist of two separate parcels that comprise the Trout Lake Eagle Wildlife Management Association, Wildlife Management Area. These lands were originally acquired to protect nesting eagles, but eagles are no longer using the nests. These lands are very low hunting value. Section 17 authorizes the private sale of 2 acres of surplus state land in Pine County. This strip of land was originally acquired in 1985 for the Kraft Wildlife Management Area. The strip of land was intended to provide access to that area. However, access was never developed in this location, and the DNR now has legal access and a parking lot at another location at that wildlife management area. The DNR would like to sell this land to an adjoining private landowner. Section 18 is a county provision that authorizes the exchange of lands within 20 government sections within St. Louis County. The DNR has reviewed this and has no concerns. I do understand that someone from St. Louis County is here today and should be able to answer questions on those St. Louis County provisions. Section 19 is also a county provision that authorizes St. Louis County to deposit the proceeds of tax forfeited land sales into a tax forfeited land acquisition trust account and to spend that money to purchase lands for forestry, mineral management, or other environmental service purposes. The DNR has reviewed this one also and has no concerns. Section 20 is also a county provision. This one authorizes St. Louis County to sell one parcel and part of another parcel of certain tax forfeited lands by private sale. The DNR reviewed this provision and has no concerns. Section 21 authorizes the private sale of 0.05 acres of surplus riparian state land in Sherburne County for less than market value. This land is currently part of the Eagle Lake Water Access Site. The sale is proposed to an adjoining private landowner to resolve a trespass. Section 22 is a proposal for a land exchange. This was proposed by the Minnesota National Guard. The National Guard proposes to exchange land that is adjacent to a National Guard maintenance shop with land owned by the city of Rosemont. DNR defers to the National Guard on this issue and takes no position on it. Section 23 was the provision addressed earlier, which is originally drafted as the repeal of the sunset provision relating to Lewis County authority to sell certain leased lakeshore lots. Via the amendment, the prior language has been reinstated.
Thank you.
Thank you. And DNR has no concerns about that provision. And that concludes my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. I think we'll continue with testifiers. Next on my list, I have Mr. Greg Bernew, I believe, from the Minnesota County Land Commissioners. Mr. Bernew, please proceed.
Yes, my name is Gregory J. Bernew. I'm the Land Commissioner for Carleton County. I'm here on behalf of the Minnesota Association of County Land Commissioners. Thank you, Madam Chair. Today I'm here to just reinforce the commitment of the land commissioners who manage 2.8 million acres of county fee and tax forfeited trust lands across the state of Minnesota. We worked hard last year with the various committees and with the DNR to figure out the language of Section 5 and Section 6 of this bill. The big change for Section 5 is to change lines 711 through 713 to increase the term of our ability to lease tax forfeited lands, mostly for utilities. We were handcuffed at 10 years, $12,000. We would like to move that up to 25 years, $50,000. That falls in line with inflation. This law has not been changed for decades, so we would like that bump up. That also allows utilities such as solar farms, wind generators, and cell phone towers to place these land or facilities on tax forfeited land and make it economical for them to stay there. The 10-year lease language just did not cut it, so we look for that change. Then also on lines 9.4, to lease the lands for conservation easements. These conservation easements could range from something as simple as carbon credits to wetland banking to just plain old conservation easements for long-term ecological services. And that's also the same as the line sections 910 through 913, or lines, I'm sorry. Thank you for your work on this. We just want to reemphasize that the land commissioners really are pushing this, and it just doesn't benefit the 15 northern counties that are heavily forested. This actually affects all 87 counties because cell phone tower companies do look at places in Rock County, in Kitson County, where that particular topography does work well for a cell phone tower, and it just happens to be on tax forfeit land. So this benefits all 87 counties of Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions from members? Representative Heinzman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I am just quickly wanting to confirm, maybe it got covered and I missed it, but fiscal note, Representative Hansen?
Representative Hansen.
Hagemeyer.
Mr. Hagemeyer.
Madam Chair, Representative Heinzman, I don't have a current fiscal note on this. Last year, we were tracking the revenues at about 1.6 million. I'll request a new fiscal note, and it would have needed a new one based on the amendment anyways, so I'll put in a fiscal note request for it. But it has some revenue. Generically for this bill, if it's a county parcel that's being sold, the revenues are retained by the county, so it doesn't show up on a fiscal note. The revenues you'd be seeing would be for the state-owned properties that are being sold. So I would assume the number is similar, but I'll get a new fiscal note requested for it.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you. I do have one more question.
Proceed.
All right, Representative Hansen, just one last thing here. The A1 amendment was written for St. Louis County. I'm wondering if there's any other counties that would be similarly affected.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Representative Heinzman. Ms. Taylor, it's broad enough where it's,
Ms. Taylor.
Madam Chair, this provision pertains only to St. Louis County and had been before. This is more of a technical amendment for a sunset provision that only applied to St. Louis County in the beginning.
Representative Heinzman.
Yeah, maybe I'll rephrase the question. Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Hansen, maybe maybe there's someone that could answer this. Maybe you need to defer, but is this a situation we could foresee happening again in the future?
Representative Hansen.
thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully, if we pass a lands bill every year, and I would encourage members, this might be the opportunity to say there will be another lands bill, and members should work with their districts to see if there are lands, and work with the county land commissioners to see, for the next lands bill, we usually do a notice that goes out. I would say that it sets precedent if we pass this of having to go back and fix something where the clock ran out. But hopefully we wouldn't have to, that's a precedent I don't want to have to use, and I hope we don't have to use that again because we don't pass a lands bill. But it would be precedent setting. I don't think we've done a similar thing with the lands bill, but it'd be precedent. It wouldn't be beyond that thing. So hopefully we keep passing lands bills annually, and we won't have to worry about it.
Representative Heinzman?
That'll do it for now. Thank you.
Are there further questions from members? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify for or against this bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Hansen, closing remarks.
Well, thank you, members, for this. As I mentioned, I'm hopeful that we don't have to redo lands bills, but it is an important thing for folks in their district. And so I would encourage you, again, we'll be getting more information out on this. I would ask for your vote for this. I think it's a good example of trying to catch up and clean up, and it helps out folks in their district. So I would ask for your support, and I would renew my motion.
With that, Representative Hansen renews his motion that House File 50, as amended, be re-referred to Ways and Means. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion prevails.